Is anything at all going to change in Turkey?
Ankara will really have to genuinely look towards settling its relations with Syria and coming to some form of a closure when it comes to the decade-long conflict that we've seen already erupt since the beginning of the Arab Spring. But that also means that Ankara will have to engage Tehran and Moscow, because those are the two other actors present in Syria. Without these countries, it's impossible to have any type of solution when it comes to, for example, sending the refugees from Turkey, the Syrian refugees, back to Syria.
Hello, my name is Nicholas Furnival. You are watching or listening to an OSW interview. Today I'll be talking to Adam Michalski, an expert from OSW's Turkey department. We'll be discussing the result of the presidential election in Turkey. So, first, what was the result of the election?
Well, the result was what we've been expecting, which is a clear victory for Recep Tayyip Erdoğan, the current president of Turkey. He got just over 52%, whereas his candidate from the opposition got 47.9%, so literally just short of 48%. But that's a clear victory either way. I mean, we're not talking here about some form of a decimal point victory. We're talking about a clear, decisive victory, which in essence means that President Erdoğan already yesterday around 9 p.m. has been celebrating his victory and making his victory speeches. And pretty much all night long, Turkey has been very much out on the streets parading with Turkish flags and flags of Recep Tayyip Erdoğan as their president. And this is what we've been seeing. On the side of the opposition, the presidential candidate has given a very short speech, accepting his essentially defeat without necessarily much fanfare and discussion of what's going to follow next.
Okay, so a little over half of Turkey is very happy. And the opposition has accepted the result, but has there been any unrest, or should we worry about a military coup again?
Well, I think that as we look at the emotions right now on the Turkish stage, I wouldn't be necessarily looking at protests. I mean, if protests were to erupt, they would have probably erupted by now, and this isn't the case. I think that Turks have come to accept the election results, and that also has to do with the fact that nobody really questions the end results, in the sense that they were transparent to the point where the opposition is confident that if their candidate Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu got that 48%, then that's really what he got. And it's not like, magically somebody has taken away votes by, some type of a scam or, some type of fraud in ballot box counting. So I think that because of that, everybody is quite confident with the election results. And I think that in general, Turks have come to accept the victory of Erdoğan.
Okay. So the candidate who's been ruling one way or another for 20 years won, so we should expect continuity. Is anything at all going to change in Turkey?
Well, I mean, in terms of foreign policy, the one element that I think stands out and has to do a lot with the campaign is that the campaign over the last 2 weeks has shifted towards a very kind of nationalist agenda. One of the bigger topics that the opposition tried to kind of, gain some extra supporters was to turn to the anti-immigrant narrative, particularly targeting Syrians. And so as a result, what that has done is that it has turned the Syrian refugee debate into a political promise, where Erdoğan has essentially committed himself to sending at least 1 million Syrians back to Syria in some reasonable time frame. When exactly, we don't know, but that has definitely been the outcome. What that means in terms of Turkish foreign policy is that now Ankara will really have to genuinely look towards settling its relations with Syria and coming to some form of a closure when it comes to the decade-long conflict that we've seen already erupt since the beginning of the Arab Spring. But that also means that Ankara will have to engage Tehran and Moscow, because those are the two other actors present in Syria. Without these countries, it's impossible to have any type of solution when it comes to, for example, sending the refugees from Turkey, the Syrian refugees, back to Syria. So I think that Ankara is definitely going to be continuing its path towards trying to find some form of a new chapter reset with Syria, and that has to do with, I think, the way the campaign was structured centered around this topic itself. As with when it comes to the other issues that I think we are quite familiar with when it comes to Turkish foreign policy, the question of Sweden's accession to NATO, the question of Ankara's relations with Washington and in general with the West, and also talking about the controversial relations that Ankara has with Russia, and particularly in the context of the war. I don't see much of a change on the horizon. I mean, the Erdogan's government and Erdogan's foreign policies that we've been observing for the last months and years are probably not going to change that much. So we're still going to have a controversial partner in the sense that Ankara is definitely going to be maintaining close relations with Putin. And at the same time, we're going to have these bursts of, conflicts taking place with Ankara and perhaps, the other Western capitals. So this is, I think, something that we've seen many times before, and we're probably going to see them right now under this current government.
More of the same.
More of the same.
But in the case of Sweden, as you mentioned, trying to join NATO and being blocked by Turkey, I heard many times this will be dealt with after the election in Turkey. So is there a chance that this will change now?
Of course, and I mean, this is what I mean by continuity. I mean, one of the elements of continuity is that we've mentioned many times before that Erdogan at some point will definitely accept Sweden into NATO, but the thing is, when will this happen? And I think that with him winning both the parliamentary elections and the presidency, at least when it comes to legal obstacles of accepting Sweden's membership in Turkey, there won't be any problem. I mean, the moment Erdogan says yes, that's going to go to the parliament. The parliament is going to vote it through, and it's going to go down as smoothly as it went for Finland. Once, of course, Erdogan gives the green light. The problem is that Erdogan isn't likely to give the green light immediately, in part because he wants to receive something in return. And one of those things is, the sale of F-16 jets by Washington to Turkey. And this is, I think, one of those topics that has become extremely politicized over the last couple of months, where Washington is arguing that without first Turkey accepting Sweden into NATO, we are not going to be selling F-16s. And so this is the same narrative, the same issues that we've had prior to the elections, likely to carry on over to the next couple of months. But I think that we should be positive that Sweden should sooner or later be accepted. Whether that means months or years, that I cannot effectively tell you.
Well, we will find out sooner or later.
Exactly.
Where is the opposition at the moment? Because Kılıçdaroğlu was the unifying candidate and he failed. So is the opposition likely to remodel itself or simply disappear for some time?
Well, I think that the second option is more likely in the sense that the opposition had huge stakes in this election. I mean, for them, it was essentially a battle for survival. The fact that they have lost quite badly already in the first round, and right now in the second round, they have failed to secure the presidency, means that Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu's policy, who is, of course, the presidential candidate of the opposition and the leader of opposition, his plan didn't work out. And that means that some type of political consequences will certainly come out of that. Whether that means a reshuffling of, the opposition leadership, that meaning that Mr. Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu might perhaps have to step down as the leader of the CHP, the biggest Republican party. Those are things that are definitely up hanging in the air as possible places where I think the consequences of this lost election might be felt. The second thing is that this opposition bloc consists of, 6 parties, and these 6 parties were held together by this motif that, we can remove Erdogan from power. And in general, that the elections were this big kind of building block around which they have come together. Right now, with elections over, the big thing that was holding them together is gone. And the question is, will these 6 parties be able to continue down that road for the next couple of months, years, in this united format? And that's where I have, I think, big problems, in part because their political agendas are literally the sum of pretty much the whole Turkish spectrum, from, liberal idealists to Islamists to conservatives to kind of more average center political views. I mean, they literally span across the Turkish whole political Turkish stage when it comes to their ideas. And I don't see such a vast and diverse political union of parties maintaining that coherence for a long time. But, I mean, of course, miracles, as I might say, happen, and perhaps this opposition might find a new way how to exist, but I think it's going to be highly unlikely.
Again, we will see or not see. Just one final thing. I read in El País this morning that the Turkish Republic is turning 100 years old, and President Erdoğan has spent about a quarter of that leading the country. This is his legacy. He doesn't seem to be disappearing anytime soon, and he wants to be the new great leader after Ataturk. How do you see it moving forward? How much more of Erdoğan do we have?
Well, legally speaking, we should have 5 years, in the sense that the new constitution guarantees the president 2 terms in a row. So this is his second term. Technically, it's his 3rd term, but this was prior. He was already president prior to the constitutional referendum in 2017. But the referendum essentially reset the counter. So technically speaking, he has another 5 years, and after that, he should start thinking about, well, how he's going to extend his rule.
Well, he would be 74 years old.
Or who's going to, exactly. Or who's going to essentially take the leadership after him, because if he doesn't feel competent or at least physically able to lead the country after 5 years of additional rule, well, then he has to figure out a way of how to transfer the power to somebody who he can trust, and that, of course, is going to be his biggest dilemma. The other thing is he might try to reinvent Turkey once again, maybe not drastically, but one of the topics that we've been looking at as a possible kind of political venture over the next couple of years is perhaps doing another constitutional referendum, this time going towards a civilian constitution, as President Erdoğan has been highlighting many times, and essentially civilianizing this constitution, perhaps giving a way to secure another 2 terms of presidential, rule if he feels so. So I think that he has definitely, his biggest agenda right now is how to, after the next 5 years of his rule, that we're going to see how it's going to turn out, how to guarantee some form of continuity, and as you've mentioned, how to secure his legacy as essentially perhaps not the alternative to Ataturk, but as the one who complements Ataturk project, as the one who definitely has played a fundamental role in the shaping of the Turkish Republic, and that will be the legacy that he's going to try to cement at this stage.
And the people who will understand that will be talking about 100 years from now.
Possibly.
Okay. Thank you very much, Adam.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this interview, please like and subscribe to watch more stories from the region.